Hi, and welcome to the Agri-Food Pioneers. We're here to give a voice to companies in the agriculture and food industries making a real difference to the environment. And today I'm joined by Sophie Cath, Business Development Manager at Eurofins Agro Testing UK, who deliver analytical services to the agricultural industry. Welcome, Sophie, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Nigel. Great to be here.
Yeah, no, it's really good to have you along. And we will learn a lot more about why you're here in a moment. But first of all, do you think you could tell us about Eurofins and your position within the company?
Yeah, sure. So basically, Eurofins is part of a wider group called Eurofins Scientific, which is a group of international life science companies. And essentially, it provides analytical testing. So in short, we are the world's largest laboratory, which consists of 61,000 employees at the moment, over 900 labs based in 61 countries. So that isn't just in agriculture, though, involved in all different areas, such as cosmetics, forensics, genomics, food and feed, environment, anything you can think of, really. So in terms of my role, I'm based in the agro division of the business. So we are Europe's largest analytical services business in agriculture, based all over Europe. And I work in the UK. So my role is to develop the business here in the UK. And in terms of what Eurofins does, their kind of real aims is they want to be contributing to a safer and healthier world by providing customers with high quality data, research, and advisory services. So, and then in terms of the agriculture side, we want to contribute to healthy, viable and sustainable farming, basically.
Too right. And I suppose that is basically why you're here and why you are deemed to be worthy of the title, an Agri-Food Pioneer, because it's all about using data for good and for renewable and regenerative purposes. Is that the case? Is there any other reason that you think you are an agri-food pioneer?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Nigel. You know, to start, you need data. So accurate data is that essential first step to navigating the global climate crisis that we're in. There's a common phrase of if you can't measure it, you can't manage. And it is very true. And I think that's a big reason of why I joined Eurofins. I get real great job satisfaction thinking that, you know, we are purely providing that data. There's no vested interest. So it makes me feel like I'm doing a good thing day to day.
I'm sure you are, and I'm sure you're very good at it too. So what type of things do you test at Eurofins Agro, and what do you test them for?
Sure. So in short, we test anything and everything that you can think of within agriculture in terms of substances. So soil, forage, and that includes fresh forage as well as ensiled forage. We would test plant materials, substrates in horticulture, and all of the different fertilizers and waters within horticulture as well. We would be testing slurries and manures. We also test digestates, composts. So yeah, anything you can think of really in agriculture. And in terms of what we test, it really does depend on the substance. So if you take soil as an example, primarily people have just been testing soil for the standard PK, mag pH, and lime and a bit of a hand texture. But that is definitely developing as things go on. So yeah, there's, in terms of trends, definitely we're seeing more want to utilize natural resources. So I mentioned slurry and manure. Fertilizer costs are going through the roof. People want to utilize these resources much more effectively. So they're coming to us asking if we can test the nutritional content of what's in them so they can better utilize it. So that's, one of the key areas. And linking to that, people want to apply these products more accurately. So we can offer in-season testing. So you could look at the nutrients that's in the leaf versus what's actually in the soil, plant available. So it's just, again, that trend of better utilisation of those natural resources. Other areas would be soil organic matter. So a lot of people are talking about organic matter, largely due to the sustainable farming incentive. So amongst all of the detail in there, one of the key things that have come out is that they want farmers to be testing for organic matter on a reasonably regular basis. So yeah, we're getting a lot of interest in how to test organic matter.
But why would they call you an advanced lab when all they need to do is bury a cotton pair of pants in their field, and that's all the information they need, right? Have you heard about that? Have you heard about?
Indeed. I have indeed. I mean, try writing that on your applications. I don't know if you'll get the funding you need, but it's worth a go. Worth a go.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure. So, who is your client base? Is it predominantly farmers, or is it sort of bigger companies?
Predominantly, well, we do have some farmers that come to us directly, but it's predominantly businesses such as agronomy companies, nutritionists. We would deal with food producers, companies that are producing products such as new biostimulants or inorganic fertilizers, things like that. There's a lot of interest in the carbon space as well at the moment. So, yeah, the types of customers we have are really varied. That does make the job really interesting. So that's good, yeah.
Good. I'm glad it's interesting. And what are the main trends within the laboratory world in agro right now?
Yeah, so one of the key ones is definitely a growing interest just in agriculture from further down the supply chain. So we're getting a lot more interest from food manufacturers, retail, but from a sustainability claims perspective. So they'll have net zero targets, and they've got a real interest in setting up sustainable agri-food chains. Carbon, I mentioned earlier, it's being talked about a lot. There's not really that much of a deep understanding, or particularly from further down the supply chain. There's still a lot to learn in the agro world anyway. But people want more transparent chains, and that links as well as consumers really wanting to know the origin of their food. People are finding, doing a lot more research about things, and they want to know more. So that is linking into our world by people reaching out to us and wanting to find out a lot more detail, really, around the soil and the plants and the food that's then being produced.
It's all about the detail, isn't it? So getting
indeed,
that data, and as the environment becomes more of a factor and we can waste nothing really going forward, we need to know everything about everything. And I think that's definitely going to become more prevalent in the future. So is it a busy market space you occupy? Are there many other laboratories doing similar things to you, and how do Eurofins compare?
Yeah, I mean, I think, is it a busy market space? In the UK, not really. And I think when speaking to competitors, always in a friendly manner, I think it's fair to say that there's a huge demand for testing out there. And we can all help each other in that respect. And in terms of what Eurofins can deliver, well, obviously, we've got, with the world's largest laboratory, so it means we've got a wealth of knowledge and experience across the business, which we can pull on different divisions of Eurofins as well. If there's something very weird and wonderful that someone wants to be tested, for example, we do a lot of vitamins testing in Denmark, we can call on our Danish colleagues for their expertise in that area. So, yeah, we've got huge access to knowledge in that respect. And also, we're just a laboratory, so there's no vested interest. Our product is testing. So for us, the main priority is producing very accurate data.
Great.
And And I've mentioned as well that because we're global, it gives us that opportunity to provide standardization globally. So we do have interest from large multinational companies that want to have a company that can provide them with an international solution across 10 different countries, and we can supply that. So we want to be that one-stop shop basically for the agri-food sector, which we are from farm to fork. So we can help
sounds
that.
like you are.
Yeah,
absolutely does. A safe pair of very big hands. Okay, so this is a question. What is near infrared spectroscopy?
Very well
worded.
Yeah, very well. Very well.
Obviously, I didn't write this question. Sophie has had some input here. So near infrared spectroscopy, and let's just call it NIR, shall we? I mean, that's what everyone in the know calls it. And what are the benefits of using it?
Yeah, so people may have heard a bit about this in some of our literature and articles that have been out in the press and things. So basically, it's an analytical technique, and in hopefully in simple words, it uses a source producing light of a known wavelength pattern, and that will enable you to obtain a complete picture of the organic composition of that analysed substance or material. So what that means is that we'll take a product, so let's say forage. We actually dry that to a set temperature, and we grind it to a fine millimeter, and then we will scan it through this beam of light. And then what we get back is the graph looks like a very bumpy graph, and when you drill right down into it, it will have certain areas. So it might have an area for protein or an area for starch, and we can determine the levels of protein and starch. Very commonly used in the forage industry. We do the dried and ground technique, as I said, Nigel, and the benefits of that is that you're removing the water, which acts like a fog on the against the light. If you imagine when it's been raining and your windscreen steamy or whatever, it creates a fog. So we remove that fog by removing the moisture, and we dry it at a set temperature that means that none of the nutrients degrade. And by grinding it, it increases the surface area when you're scanning it against the light. So it just makes it more accurate, basically. And so that's the forage. It's pretty well established. But what we've been doing is learning how to interpret that for soil, and we've been doing that over the last 20 years. So the result of that is that you can get the same results through NIR, but the real benefits is it's much quicker and more efficient, and you can routinely report over 100 different soil characteristics in some circumstances.
Thanks for that, Sophie. That was fascinating. Are there many other laboratories using NIR, or is this a point of difference for Eurofins?
I don't think there are for soil, no. As I say, in forage, it's highly established. But no, it is a point of difference for us.
Okay, good. So farmers obviously short on time and have a lot of increasing costs. So why would they get testing from you? How are you adding value to the agricultural industry?
So I think really one of the real benefits, particularly of using the NIR, is, as I say, you can establish potentially 100 different soil parameters. And what that enables us to do is really look in depth, so we can get a real idea of the bigger picture and a deeper understanding of those interactions. And so in some of our higher level tests, we provide quite a bit of interpretation within the reports, because, as I say, it's great to have numbers, but you want to try and understand what they mean and how you can use them. So one of the examples I can provide is on one of our reports called our Fertilisation Manager. It does provide fertiliser recommendations. They're based off agronomic optimum, so they don't factor in any legislation, but very useful information to know. We also have things like a water retention curve So it gives farmers an insight into what the wilting point would be, the irrigation point, and the saturation point within your soil. And having that data, it just gives you really good insight into how to manage water. And another example would be our latest carbon test, which is called our soil carbon check. And that looks into, again, more depth. So we look at obviously what carbon's in the soil, but then looking at the quality of it, whether it's going to be more stable or more dynamic in terms of the organic matter side, and then looking at what level you need to increase it to hit we work off the UN Sustainable Development Goals because that's a standardized goal globally, and then giving you insight into how you can actually manipulate your practices to reach those goals. So what we want to provide is data that farmers can actually use in practice to improve their soils and manage their crops better.
So there will be real value then. I mean, this is going to have a return on investment, a significant return on investment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, with anything, it's about then acting on the data. So, data is very powerful, but you've then got to act upon it. But certainly, if you're really channeling down on these things, if you're measuring your slurry and really looking at the nutrients within that, then you're utilising that resource. If you're then going to test the soil, you can look at what nutrients are in the soil, what's plant available, what's stock in the soil, and then you can adjust your recommendations. So you're really fine-tuning your applications, and then testing your crop to see is it taking it up? What tweaks do I need to be made? And then that's really going to have a huge impact on yield and quality. Granted, weather always plays a part, but it will give you the best chance you can to make yourself as resilient as possible, basically.
Well, that's a very good message, isn't it? That should be your tagline. So what are the most common things that you're getting asked for at the moment?
So, I mean, I've mentioned the interpretation. People are wanting advice. People are wanting interpretation. I think there's a real knowledge gap, I think, at the moment. There's a lot for farmers to juggle, and they're being told that they need to do so many things, and they're just desperate for guidance as to what these things mean. I mean, in Eurofins, we have so many incredibly intelligent people, far more intelligent than me. I just managed to get my way through somehow, but it's my job as more of a client-facing person to get that scientific expertise out there. And as I said, we do deal with some farmers directly, but we can often be a couple of steps removed from the people actually using the testing. Yeah. And in my opinion, the industry desperately needs to hear more examples of how farmers are actually using analytical data in practice. What are they changing as a result of that? And having that information will really help, particularly the laboratory industry, to innovate and fine-tune what else is needed. And it will then help farmers as well think about, right, I've got this data, but how can I actually use it?
That's a really interesting point. Finally, Sophie, it's a bit of a tradition of the YouTube channel where we ask all the guests. This channel is about encouraging and trying to help our guests accelerate their journey towards a regenerative and sustainable future. So how can our viewers help you on your journey?
I think it's talking. So, invite me to study groups or events where I can talk. As I say, we've got a whole wealth of knowledge at Eurofins that we can pull on. We can't always promise to know the answers straight away because these things are very complex, but reach out to Eurofins and share with us what you're finding out there. We will need to keep talking more. And as I say, tell us how you're using that data. That will help the industry to develop. And do follow us on social media platforms in terms of Eurofins Agro Testing UK. We are on Twitter and LinkedIn. And if you'd like to follow myself on LinkedIn, search Sophie Cath, and I'm sure you'll find me.
I'm doing it. I already am. It's a great follow. I'd highly recommend it. Thank you so much for joining us, Sophie.
Thank you, Nigel. Take care.
Okay, so subscribe now and click the bell so you're notified when we speak to more pioneers of the agri-food industry that are leading the way to a sustainable, low carbon and regenerative future. Thanks for watching.
Are you an agri-food pioneer? Get in touch now to arrange your interview.